Hi, I'm Ellen Gunning and my business is the PR Training Academy. I'm also a member of the Executive Council of EADL, the European Association of Distance Learning. I'm delighted to be hosting this series of videos in which we meet other EADL members, learn a little about them and share some information with you. Today, I'm joined by two members of FUN, which is a learning organisation in Norway. I'm joined by Kari Olstad and Tommy Bull-Henstein, who are Senior Advisor and CEO. Thank you for joining me, both of you.
Yeah, no problem. Our pleasure.
Tell me, FUN, it's a great name. Where does it come from and what does it actually mean?
Yeah, it means flexible education Norway, and of course, in education in Norway has a U for first letter, so that's why we have that acronym. And of course, we get some attention by using it, so that's not bad. Our
It's a
conference
great
is named
complaint.
FunCon, and that makes people come, right?
And do they get disappointed when they arrive? FunCon? It sounds like a comedy festival.
No, it's not a comedy festival, but it's really entertaining, getting all that competence, getting all that inspiration, right? Kari, you know this conference better than anyone.
It's good, healthy fun, yeah. Professional
So
fun.
Tell me what your organization actually does then. What's your purpose? Why do you
We're a network. We have members from the big institutions that deliver education to Norwegians and the small institutions, private, government. So we meet a lot of the people that make flexible education in Norway, and we put them together. We meet a lot of them, speak to them. We use their advice and speak to politicians about it. So we make sure that politicians are educated on what works in flexible education. So that's our main purpose, making our members learn from each other and making politicians learn from them.
So when you talk about flexible education, do you mean education across the spectrum from corporate people training their own members, their own staff in-house through to universities?
Potentially, yeah. But our members are typically professional educators. So they will have education as their main purpose.
So they would either be the likes of third level institutions or they would be specifically training organizations rather than companies that have a training wing.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
And why do they join your organization? I presume they learn a lot from you, but what do they actually learn?
They learn from us what we learn from them. So when we go to speak to 1 or 3 or 5 members a month, we ask them questions. And of course, I have a journalist background. I'm not from education, so I'm curious. I just ask and ask and ask and get a lot of meaningful answers that I use when I talk to others. And that becomes inspiration for our conferences, our news, and also the meetings that we set up between our members. So what they get is a big network, people that are interested in the same things, people that have the same challenges, and people that probably have solutions that they haven't thought of yet. So that's why they are.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tommy. And what sort of trends are you seeing coming through? What's been the common trend or some common trends over the past year among your members?
So many challenges are new now. They are just overwhelmed with new problems because they have to have made changes in their entire organization, what they deliver to the students, how they manage things internally. Kari, you've spoken to a lot of them.
Yeah, I will say that one of the most important trends is that we now see that flexible education is more than just online education. It's more than flexibility in time and space, but also it could be other dimensions like flexibility in assessment. Do you get a diploma? Do you need an end assessment? Can you have different forms of assessment? Can you learn in a different order? Can the learner choose between starting from a big overview and going into the details, or starting with little details, building up the general knowledge? So we see like 7 dimensions of flexibility that our members explore.
It's really interesting because I suppose what COVID has allowed your members to do is look at what suits their participants best. But I'm sure that's also driven by the participants themselves saying, my life has changed completely and it no longer suits me to study in the way that I did before. That's an awful lot of change in a very short period of time.
It is, and it's all over Europe, all over the world, really.
And what's the key thing you've seen? Is it a change in the way people study? Is it the length of time they study? Is it the way that a study is assessed? What's the biggest change? What's been the one big whammy that's kind of common across Europe, or is there one?
Yes, all of them, and that's probably the biggest takeaway. Uh, we are individuals. We have different needs. We have different circumstances. So now, during this past year, everyone has had to go online with their learning. Not only the people that seek the online learning experience. So now we see what problems do these people have? What problems do these people have engaging in learning? So we learn a lot about what kind of flexibility do different people need, and they need all of these dimensions. So
And
that's
what
been
about the
interesting.
likes of university students? Because I'm very conscious that from speaking with university students around the world, really, their complaint, if you like, is that they used to attend lectures in theatre. And now what has happened is that the lecturer stands in front of a camera and delivers to a camera instead of to them. And that it's a poorer experience because they don't have people to discuss with. So it's a different forum entirely. Have you found that you're attracting new members who say, now that we've had to move into flexible education, possibly not by choice, we need you to help upskill us, or we need the benefit of your network?
Yeah, or especially actually with our existing members, quite a lot of them are big universities. So what they see is that within the university, more and more lecturers are interested in learning about how to enhance their digital learning, and especially with the student activities, as you said, more and more people have experienced that they can't just do lectures online. You need to change the way you teach, and more of them, I think, are being motivated to change their teaching altogether by adding more student activities, more in-depth learnings with assignments and discussion groups, and engaging the students more. And hopefully that will linger after COVID.
I would imagine that that would actually create more positions in university because the level of interaction with the students is much greater and the time span that's needed is much broader.
I hope you're right, because it takes resources to deliver great online or flexible teaching, but also I think the use of student assistants, which we never used to do in Norway at all. I think that also get more popular, and I think we will see more use of student assistants in Norwegian universities and higher learning institutions.
I'd be familiar with special needs assistance, but not with students assistance. So special needs assistance in Ireland would be for students with who are particularly challenged. So it's somebody who would make sure that they fully understood what was happening. But what's a student assistant in Norway? What do they do?
So that would be a more experienced student within the fields. It could be a third-year student helping first-year students, for example, within a bachelor program. And they could help facilitate discussion groups and so on. So and guide students when they work on assignments. So it would be like an assistant to the teacher or the lecturer.
It's a very clever idea because particularly for new students coming in a COVID environment where they're not meeting anybody and they don't have that same on-campus experience, to have somebody say, this is who you need to know and this is how the situation works, is a really good idea. Tommy, I'm going to come back to you for a second because you mentioned that part of your role or part of Fund's role is to liaise with politicians. So give me a feeling for what the understanding of flexible education is. What's the base that you're starting from and what are you trying to change?
A lot of politicians right now, even those working on education only, they understand distance and flexible education as online courses. And almost always they understand it as a lecturer giving some kind of lecture through video. But also some resources online that students are expected to read or use before the lecture. So it's a very narrow understanding of flexible education. So a really important task for us now is to broaden that understanding, because a lot of politicians are right now, also the political parties are, they are writing their policies for the future. They are making plans for how are they going to, what kind of policies are they going to make the next 4 years, the next 10 years, and if they if they are too narrow, we won't get them to make our education systems better in a flexible way in the next year. So we need to speak to them right now. There's a general election this September, so they're all writing what they're going to do the next 4 years. And if they write that they're going to expand the video lectures of Norway, we can't help them make better flexible education as we want.
Timing is probably massively on your side then. If there's a general election coming in September, they will actually be listening to you.
Yeah,
But
they
I
have
would
been listening.
imagine that what you're suggesting to them, to a politician, is actually quite revolutionary.
We're suggesting that they don't make policies that are in the way of developing new kinds of education, new kinds of resources. So we say to them, when you change this law about universities, don't use the language of yesterday. Don't talk about classrooms. Don't talk about the books. Don't talk about the blackboard. You need to have a technology free environment in the law, so the schools are able to use more resources, more tools in their education. So that's one advice. Just don't limit us in the future, because changing the laws, that doesn't happen every year. So if the law limits us now, it will limit us for the next 6 years. It will limit what the institutions are developing, what they are putting into their strategies for the next years. So that's really important.
So I presume your links with politicians is via lobbying effectively. So you're lobbying them and briefing them and saying this is what we need as a legal change. But what about politicians generally reflect the society that they live in? So what about the civil society? Is society in Norway ready for that big change in how education is delivered?
No, but I think individuals are ready. A lot of individuals are ready for that big change. And a really important point for us is there are so many individual differences. Many will also in the future use the traditional classroom education as their means to learn something new, their means to have an education. But some people need something else. They don't have the resources to go to campus. They don't have time to take the course over 3 years. They need a different kind of progression. So these individual differences demand that we have a flexible education that gives everyone what they need. So I don't think there will be a revolution. I think there will be more opportunities, more tools in the educator's toolbox. And that will help us meet more of the demands. That will help us educate more of the people that cannot be educated right now because of their circumstance.
And what about, I might bounce back to you, Carrie, if I can. What about EADL then? You're members of EADL, the European Association of Distance Learning. What does that bring to FUN, or what does FUN bring to EADL?
We're all about networking, and EADL is also a big network. So we meet people that work in the same field as us all across Europe, and we learn from each other. Basically, that's what we do. We meet up, we share experience and learn from each other, but we can also develop new ideas together. I would like to mention one of the things that we our members rely a lot on is the quality work that we do in FUN. We have a standing quality committee, and we develop tools for assessing and development of quality in online and flexible education. And we created a handbook. It's about 80 pages. It's not very big, but it's become very, very popular in Norway among educators. And together with the EADL, we translated that one into English. So that was a joint collaboration between our two organizations, and I think we published it in Manchester a few years ago, but it's still available, and EADL members can freely get that online.
So your main mission really is not only to change the vision of how education is delivered in the future, but it's also to work with people who are currently delivering it and to raise that standard and make
Absolutely.
sure that it is the best that it can possibly be. Is there a standard then? Is there a quality mark that applies to becoming a member of FUN, or is there a quality mark that you give members? Or if they achieve that standard, how do I know as a Norwegian that they have that high standard?
No, this is a very Scandinavian approach, I guess. It's more the process. So you wouldn't audit them. You wouldn't have, I mean, we have guidelines. We have developed guidelines. Absolutely. And we work together to improve the quality within ourselves and also in the entire field, even among providers that aren't members of our organization. So it's a joint process of increasing quality in online and flexible education all over Norway and Europe, really. It's the end learner. That's our final goal.
And I suppose the really difficult question, how do you gauge success? Because you don't have competitors in the way that other EADL members do. So if they're competing with other people to provide training, they know whether they're winning or losing vis-a-vis others. How do you gauge that that standard is increasing, or your voice is being heard, or you are making an impact? The impossible question, but I'll ask you anyway.
Oh no, I think I can answer that quite easily. We're not a professional organization. Our members are the professionals. And they funded us 50 years ago to increase quality in the field. And that's what they're still doing. So we facilitate the work of our members. They are the professionals, and they are all our committee, all our advisors are our members.
So it's not an end game, it's an ongoing journey. It's a constant process of improving as you go along. Tommy, I might come back to you and ask you then, what's the biggest challenge, aside from trying to convince the politicians that you're right and they may not yet have seen the light of the future, which is very possible. What's the biggest challenge facing you? Is it that legislative piece? What is it?
Right now, it's like legislation, no doubt. Just because so many things that would have effect for a long time is being made now, and it's being made so rapidly that we are not able to give them as much advice as we want. The deadlines are short, the hearings are within a week, you have to tell us this. So we are not able to have those long processes that will make legislation good for the next 10 years. So that's the most important thing right now. But luckily, we have been getting the meetings. We have been meeting the ministers and their advisors and the political parties. So that helps us. That helps us a lot, and we are carrying to them our advice from all these institutions. So I think we are going to succeed in at least opening up and broadening the flexible education in legislations for going forward. But I think for me, the biggest challenge is getting across the huge differences in ways to deliver good education. Because a lot of people need to hear this is the best way to do it. Everyone should do it in this way because this is the best way. But my vision is this: you need to approach it with a lot of different ways to meet the individual's need for their best way. And of course, now we want to reach everyone with lifelong learning. We want people to be able to learn over the course of their entire life, and their needs will vary over this time. And we're going to reach people that have maybe not as good experience with learning. They have different needs. We haven't been working towards these people a lot in higher education, so they will need something else. So the big challenge is getting across that we need to do a lot of things, not the perfect thing. So we shouldn't be spending so much time looking for the perfect way of delivering flexible education. We need to spend a lot of time making sure we deliver in a lot of different ways.
I think that's a great point to end on, that actually, if you were delivering one simple message saying everybody should study in a university environment, it would be much easier for everyone to grasp. Yeah. So it would be an easier message to deliver, and it would be an easier message for the politicians to deliver on.
Yeah,
but sure. What you're actually seeking is a much wider and a much more holistic approach. And you're actually trying to change society and create an environment where lifelong learning becomes something that people can very easily participate. No small challenge ahead of you then,
No.
Tommy and Carrie. Well done. Thank you for that interview today. I really enjoyed it. The very best of luck to the future. I'm Ellen Gunning. I've been joined by Carrie Olstad and Tommy Bull-Henstein, both from FUN in Norway. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I hope you've learned something about them, their member organisation and EADL. Until the next time, goodbye. Essential online training solutions for communications professionals. The PR Training Academy.